He married an alien lady without seeing her until their wedding night and had no regrets. Trevor Sterling stood before the ornate mirror in his quarters aboard the diplomatic vessel, Stellar Accord, adjusting his formal military dress uniform. The deep blue fabric with gold trim perfectly complemented his tall, athletic build and sharp features. His dark hair was neatly trimmed, and his green eyes reflected both determination and uncertainty. "You're really going through with this?" asked Admiral Richard Thompson, his mentor and longtime friend, watching from across the room. The older man's weathered face bore the concerned expression of a father figure. Trevor straightened his collar. "Earth needs this alliance, sir. The Pyraxian Empire controls crucial hyperspace lanes and resources we require. Besides," he added with a hint of his characteristic dry humor, "how bad could it be? Lady Tria's father is one of their most respected barons. A baron who's offering his daughter's hand in marriage to a human she's never met," Thompson pointed out, "and whom you've never seen beneath that damned veil." "The Pyraxians are honorable allies," Trevor replied, though his voice carried a note of uncertainty. "Their contribution to defending Earth during the Kraken incursion proved that. Honor doesn't guarantee compatibility," Thompson muttered. "Have you heard the rumors about why she wears that veil?" Trevor had indeed heard them all. Some claimed Lady Tria was hideously disfigured, while others insisted she was so beautiful that her appearance could drive men mad with desire. The truth remained hidden behind her ever-present semi-transparent brown veil, a mystery that had sparked endless speculation among both humans and aliens. "With all due respect, sir," Trevor said, turning to face his mentor, "I'm not marrying her for her looks. This alliance could save millions of lives if the Dominion decides to attack. Besides," he added with a roguish grin, "I've always had a thing for mysterious women." Thompson barked out a laugh. "You're either the bravest man I've ever met or the most foolish. Maybe both." A soft chime interrupted their conversation. The door slid open to reveal Lieutenant James Campbell, Trevor's aide. "Sir, the Pyraxian delegation has arrived. They're waiting in the Grand Hall." Trevor took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. "Well, time to meet my future wife. How do I look?" "Like a man about to jump into a black hole without knowing what's on the other side," Thompson said dryly. "Perfect," Trevor replied with a wink. "That's exactly how I feel." The Grand Hall lived up to its name, with soaring crystalline walls that caught and reflected the light of distant stars. The Pyraxian delegation stood in a semicircle, their elaborate robes shimmering with embedded bioluminescent threads. At their center stood Baron Kylax, his imposing 7-foot frame draped in royal purple. And beside him, wearing that infamous brown veil, stood Lady Tria. Even through the semi-transparent material, Trevor could make out the basic shape of her face and the curve of her body. The veil seemed to shift and flow with her movements, revealing tantalizing glimpses while maintaining its essential mystery. "Commander Sterling," Baron Kylax's deep voice resonated through the hall. "Welcome to our family." Trevor bowed formally. "The honor is mine, Baron." He turned to the veiled figure beside him. "Lady Tria." She inclined her head gracefully, and when she spoke, her voice was melodious with an exotic accent that sent a pleasant shiver down his spine. "Commander Sterling, I trust you're certain about this arrangement?" "As certain as one can be about jumping into a black hole," he replied honestly, earning a few gasps from the delegation and what sounded suspiciously like a muffled laugh from beneath the veil. "An interesting analogy," she said, amusement clear in her voice, "though I hope you'll find the outcome more pleasant than being crushed into atomic particles." Trevor grinned. "Already setting the bar high, I see." The ceremony that followed was a blur of ancient traditions and modern protocols. Trevor barely registered the words as he and Tria exchanged vows, his attention fixed on the mysterious figure beside him. And even through the veil, he could feel her studying him just as intently. Finally, they were pronounced married according to both human and Pyraxian law. As the assembled dignitaries applauded, Trevor couldn't help but wonder what awaited him when that veil finally came off. The reception passed in a whirlwind of congratulations and diplomatic small talk. Throughout it all, Tria remained by his side, her presence both comforting and enigmatic. She handled herself with grace and wit, matching his occasional sarcastic remarks with clever responses of her own. As the evening drew to a close, Trevor found himself standing with his new wife in their shared quarters aboard the station. The room was luxurious but intimate, with a panoramic view of the stars outside. "Well," he said, breaking the tension-filled silence, "I suppose this is where the mystery ends." Trya turned to face him, her hands moving to the clasp of her veil. "Are you ready, Commander?" "Trevor," he corrected gently. "And yes, I believe I am." The starlight, streaming through the panoramic windows, cast an ethereal glow across their shared quarters. Trevor watched, heart pounding, as Trya's delicate fingers worked at the clasp of her veil. The soft rustle of fabric filled the silence between them. "I hope," she said softly, her voice carrying a hint of vulnerability he hadn't detected before, "that you won't find what's beneath disappointing." Trevor stepped closer, drawn by the intimacy of the moment. "I married you for far more than what's beneath that veil, Trya." Her hands paused. "Did you really? Or did you marry a political alliance?" "Perhaps I did at first," he admitted honestly. "But even through that veil, I've seen enough to know there's more to you than politics." A soft laugh escaped her. "Smooth talker, is that a human trait?" "No, that's all me," he grinned. "Though I have to admit, your wit has made this arranged marriage far more interesting than I expected." "Interesting?" Her hands resumed their work on the clasp. "Is that what humans call it when they agree to marry someone sight unseen?" "We usually call it crazy," he replied, earning another laugh. "But sometimes the craziest decisions turn out to be the best ones." The clasp finally came loose. Trya hesitated for just a moment, then slowly began unwinding the veil. As the fabric fell away, Trevor found himself holding his breath. The rumors hadn't done her justice, not even close. Her skin was a stunning shade of violet, smooth and luminescent in the starlight. Long, flowing purple hair cascaded down her back in waves that seemed to capture and reflect the light of distant stars. But it was her eyes that truly captured him. Large, radiant blue orbs that held both wisdom and mischief in their depths. She wore an exotic outfit that resembled intricate lace lingerie, the design both alien and alluring. The material seemed to shift with her movements, revealing and concealing in a mesmerizing dance. "Well," she asked, a hint of uncertainty in her voice, "are you disappointed?" Trevor realized he'd been staring. Gathering his wits, he managed to respond with a crooked smile. "I think I just understood why you wore that veil. It would be terribly distracting trying to negotiate treaties with everyone staring at you." A bright laugh burst from her, the sound musical and unreserved. "That's your response? Not what I expected from a diplomatic commander." "I'm full of surprises," he said, stepping closer. "Speaking of which, why did you agree to this marriage? Surely you had other suitors?" "Many," she admitted, moving to pour them both a drink from a crystal decanter. The liquid inside shimmered with an iridescent glow. "But none who saw past the veil, or rather, none who didn't obsess over what was beneath it." She handed him a glass, their fingers brushing. The contact sent a subtle charge through him. "And you think I'm different?" "You're the first one who made me laugh about it," she said, taking a sip. "The others either tried to flatter me with empty words or treated the veil like a challenge to be conquered." Trevor tasted the drink. It was sweet with an underlying heat that spread warmly through his chest. "So you chose me because I have a sense of humor?" "I chose you because you're real," she replied, setting down her glass. "When you agreed to this marriage, you were honest about your motivations. You didn't try to pretend it was about romance or destiny. You saw it for what it was, a political alliance, but you also treated me like a person, not a mystery to be solved or a prize to be won." "And now," he asked, placing his own glass aside, "is it still just a political alliance?" She stepped closer, close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. "I think we both know it's becoming something more." Their first kiss was tentative, exploratory. Her lips were soft, carrying a hint of the sweet drink they'd shared. When they parted, her eyes held a mixture of desire and amusement. "You know," she murmured, "on my world, it's considered quite forward to kiss before discussing cellular compatibility." Trevor chuckled. "Is that a fact? And here I thought I was being a gentleman by not asking about your biological systems first." "Oh, you needn't worry about that," she said, her fingers tracing patterns on his chest. "I've studied human physiology quite thoroughly. We're remarkably compatible." "Thorough research," he commented, his hands finding her waist. Very diplomatic of you. Indeed, she smiled. Though I find practical application often yields better results than theoretical study, what followed was a discovery of compatibility that went far beyond diplomatic relations. Their joining was both tender and passionate, a perfect blend of careful exploration and uninhibited desire. They found their rhythms naturally, as if their bodies had known each other in some previous life. Later, as they lay tangled in the sheets, Trya traced lazy patterns on his chest. I believe this alliance is off to a promising start. Trevor pulled her closer, breathing in her exotic scent. I thought we'd moved beyond political terminology. Have we? She teased. What would you call it then? I'd call it the beginning of something remarkable, he replied, kissing her forehead. Though I have to admit, I'm curious about one thing. Just one? Why did you really wear the veil? Surely not just to avoid distracting diplomats? Trya propped herself up on an elbow, her expression growing serious. It was my choice, actually. My father disagreed, but I insisted. I wanted my future husband to choose me for the right reasons, not for my appearance. And did I pass the test? Her answer was interrupted by a sudden explosion that rocked the station. Alarms began blaring as emergency lights bathed the room in red. What the hell? Trevor was already moving, years of military training kicking in. Trya was equally quick to respond, reaching for a hidden compartment in the wall that revealed a cache of weapons. It seems someone objects to our union, she said grimly, tossing him a plasma pistol. As they quickly dressed and armed themselves, Trevor couldn't help but grin. You know, most couples spend their wedding night differently. Disappointed as she's checking her weapon with practiced ease. Are you kidding? He moved to the door, taking up a defensive position. I'm starting to think I got the better end of this arrangement. Another explosion rocked the station, closer this time. Trya took position on the other side of the door, her eyes gleaming with both determination and excitement. Ready to show these crashers why they shouldn't interrupt a honeymoon? She asked. Trevor nodded, his grin widening. Let's give them a wedding present they won't forget. The corridors of the diplomatic station echoed with weapons fire and the thundering of boots. Trevor and Trya moved in perfect synchronization, covering each other as they advanced toward the command center. Their wedding attire had been hastily supplemented with tactical gear from Trya's hidden cache. You know, Trevor said as they ducked behind a bulkhead to avoid enemy fire, most newlyweds just worry about where to go for dinner. Trya fired off 3 precise shots, dropping as many attackers. Boring? I much prefer this kind of entertainment. Remind me to plan our honeymoon somewhere quieter, he replied, taking down 2 more assailants with well-placed shots. Commander Sterling? Lieutenant Campbell's voice crackled over their comm units. We've identified the attackers. It's worse than we thought. Report, Trevor ordered, scanning the corridor ahead. Multiple factions, sir. We're seeing members of the Crimson Syndicate, Outer Rim Separatists, and, sir, there are Paraxian insignias among them. Trya's expression hardened. House Malrax. They've opposed my father's pro-human policies for years. Your cousin's house? Trevor asked, remembering the diplomatic briefings. Former cousin, she corrected grimly. After what happened during the succession crisis, an explosion cut off her explanation, forcing them to dive into a side corridor. As debris rained down around them, Trevor pulled Trya close, shielding her with his body. The gesture wasn't necessary. Her natural resilience probably made her more durable than him, but it was instinctive. My hero, she teased, though her eyes held genuine warmth. But we need to reach the command center. If this is truly a coordinated attack by multiple factions, then this isn't just about disrupting our marriage, Trevor finished. They're trying to destroy the entire alliance. They fought their way through several more corridors, their movements becoming increasingly coordinated. Trevor found himself anticipating Trya's actions before she made them, and she seemed to do the same with his. It was like their earlier intimacy had created a deeper understanding between them. The command center's doors were sealed when they arrived, but Trya's security codes granted them immediate access. Inside it, they found Admiral Thompson coordinating the defense with Baron Kylax. Father, Trya called out, rushing to the Baron's side. The older Paraxian was clutching a wound in his side, though his bearing remained proud. My daughter, he managed to smile. And my new son. I apologize for the interruption to your wedding night. Save your strength, Trevor said, examining the wound. We need to get you to medical. No time, Thompson interjected, bringing up a holographic display of the station. We've got bigger problems. The attackers have taken control of the primary reactor core. They're threatening to overload it unless we surrender both of you. Both of us? Trevor frowned. Why? Because, a new voice spoke from the doorway, you represent everything we fought against. They spun to find Lord Malrax himself standing there, flanked by heavily armed troops. The Pyraxian noble's scarred face twisted in a sneer. The great Commander Sterling, hero of the Kraken War, and my dear cousin Tria, he continued, the perfect symbols of this disgusting alliance. You're just angry because father chose me as his heir instead of you. Tria shot back, her weapon trained steadily on her cousin. He chose wrong, Malrax snarled. Humans are beneath us. They're primitive, weak. And yet, Trevor interrupted casually, we managed to save your entire species from the Kraken while you cowered in your states. Malrax's face purpled with rage. You dare! Oh, he dares, Tria said, a fierce pride in her voice. That's what you never understood about humans, cousin. They don't know when to quit. It's what makes them magnificent. It's what makes them dangerous, Malrax countered. Their unpredictability, their chaos, their passion, Tria cut in, their creativity, their ability to look at impossible odds and say, watch me. She glanced at Trevor with a smile that made his heart race. It's why I chose him. Chose him? Malrax laughed harshly. It was an arranged marriage. Was it? Baron Kylax spoke up, his voice weak but amused. Did you never wonder why Tria insisted on wearing the veil? Why she turned down every suitor until Commander Sterling? Understanding dawned on Trevor as he looked at his wife. You planned this? Not this specifically, she admitted, but I saw you during the Kraken War. Watched how you fought, how you led, how you never gave up even when everything seemed hopeless. I knew then that if I was to marry anyone, it would be someone like you. So you manipulated events, Malrax sneered. How typically human of you. No, Tria corrected. I simply created an opportunity. The choice was always his. She looked at Trevor. And mine. The moment was interrupted by another explosion. This one distant but powerful enough to shake the station. The reactor, Thompson warned. They're starting the overload sequence. Trevor's mind raced. The maintenance tunnels. They lead directly to the reactor control room. They're too small for Pyraxians, Malrax said smugly. And my men guard all other approaches. But not too small for humans, Trevor grinned. He turned to Tria. Cover me? Always, she replied without hesitation. What followed was chaos. As Trevor dove for the maintenance hatch, Tria and the station's security forces engaged Malrax's troops. The firefight was intense, but it provided the distraction he needed to slip into the tunnels. The maintenance tunnels were a maze of cramped passages, barely wide enough for Trevor to crawl through. His combat suit's sensors guided him toward the reactor core, while Tria's voice provided updates through his comm unit. The situation's worse than we thought, she reported, the sound of weapons fire in the background. They've not just initiated an overload, they've completely bypassed the safety protocols. We have less than 30 minutes before total containment failure. Just 30 minutes for my first major crisis as a married man? Trevor quipped, squeezing through a particularly tight junction. I was hoping for at least a full day. Darling, Tria's voice carried that mix of amusement and determination he was growing to love. If you get us all killed on our wedding night, I'll be very cross with you. Can't have that, he grunted, reaching a vertical shaft. I've got plans for our future. Oh? Do tell. Well, first I thought we'd survive this crisis, he began climbing, using the maintenance rungs embedded in the wall. Then maybe find somewhere quiet for a proper honeymoon. I hear the crystal beaches of Proxima 4 are nice this time of year. Continue, she purred, even as the sound of her weapon discharging came through the comm. Then maybe we could discuss starting a family, he said, reaching the next level. Though I admit I'm not entirely sure about the logistics of human Pyraxian reproduction. Trust me, her voice turned sultry. It's entirely possible and thoroughly enjoyable to attempt. Trevor nearly missed the next rung, his mind flooding with memories of their earlier intimacy. You're trying to distract me. Is it working? Yes, he admitted, reaching his destination, but it's also motivating me to finish this quickly. The reactor control room access point was just ahead. but as Trevor approached, his sensors detected movement. "I've got company," he whispered. "Be careful." Tria's voice turned serious. "Malrak's forces include some of our best assassins, huh? Worried about me?" "Always. I've only just gotten you properly trained." Despite the gravity of the situation, Trevor smiled. Then he saw the readings from the reactor core and the smile vanished. "Tria, the containment field is degrading faster than we thought. We've got maybe 15 minutes, not 30. "Impossible," she replied. "Unless... Trevor, check the coolant systems." He pulled up the diagnostic display and cursed. "They've sabotaged them. The whole system's going to cascade." "If that happens, the explosion will take out half the sector," Admiral Thompson's voice cut in. "Including the civilian stations?" Trevor's mind raced. "The maintenance protocols. There's a manual override, but it has to be done from inside the reactor chamber itself." "That's suicide," Tria protested. "The radiation levels will kill a Pyraxian instantly," Trevor finished. "But humans have better radiation resistance. I might survive long enough." "Might isn't good enough," she snapped. "I didn't orchestrate this whole marriage just to lose you on our wedding night." "About that," he said, preparing to move, "we're going to have a long talk about your matchmaking methods when this is over." "I look forward to it," she replied softly. "Just come back to me." "Count on it." The next few minutes were a blur of action. Trevor eliminated the assassins with quick, precise shots, using his smaller size to his advantage in the confined space. He reached the reactor control room just as another explosion rocked the station. "Status!" he called out. "We've contained Malrax," Tria reported, "but his forces are still fighting. They're true believers, Trevor. They'd rather die than see our peoples united." "Then they're going to be disappointed," he said, accessing the control systems, "because I'm not letting anyone die today." The reactor chamber door opened with a hiss of escaping air. The radiation warning indicators were already deep in the red zone. And Trevor took a deep breath, thinking of violet skin and radiant blue eyes. "I love you," he said simply. "Don't you dare make this a goodbye." Tria's voice was fierce. "We haven't even had our first fight as a married couple." "Wouldn't dream of it," he replied, stepping into the chamber. "I still need to hear the rest of that story about how you picked me." The radiation hit him like a physical force, but he pushed through it. The manual override was at the far end of the chamber, past the pulsing core of the reactor. Each step felt like walking through molten lead. "Talk to me," he gritted out. "Keep me focused." "When I first saw you," Tria began, her voice steady despite the emotion he could hear beneath it. "You were giving orders during the Battle of Proxima. Your ship was crippled, your forces outnumbered, but you never wavered. You found a solution no one else could have seen." "Sounds familiar," he managed, reaching the override controls. His hands were shaking as he input the sequence. "That's when I knew humans were different," she continued. "You don't accept limitations. You don't bow to impossibilities. You take what everyone else says can't be done and do it anyway." The override sequence completed, but the system wasn't responding fast enough. Trevor realized with crystal clarity what he had to do. "Tria," he said, removing his gloves. "Remember what you said about humans being unpredictable?" "Trevor, what are you—" He plunged his bare hands into the override mechanism, using his own body to complete the circuit. Pain exploded through every nerve, but he held on, watching the containment field stabilize. "You're right about us," he gasped. "We don't know when to quit." The last thing he heard before consciousness fled was Tria screaming his name. The first thing Trevor became aware of was warmth, not the searing heat of the reactor core, but a gentle, soothing warmth that seemed to envelop his entire body. As consciousness slowly returned, he realized the source. Tria was curled against him, her naturally higher body temperature providing comfort to his healing form. "Welcome back," she murmured, sensing his awakening. "You've been unconscious for 3 days." Trevor tried to speak, found his throat dry. Tria helped him sip water from a nearby cup, her movements gentle but precise. The medical bay was private, luxurious, clearly a VIP suite. "Did everyone—" He managed. "Everyone survived," she confirmed. "The station is safe, the Alliance is secure, and my dear cousin is enjoying the hospitality of our highest security prison." Her voice hardened at the mention of Malrax, then softened again. "You saved thousands of lives." "Just trying to impress my new wife," he said, attempting a smile. "By nearly killing yourself." She pulled back enough to meet his eyes, and he saw the mixture of pride, love, and lingering fear in her gaze. The medical team said the radiation exposure should have been fatal. But it wasn't. No, she agreed, running her fingers through his hair. Apparently, humans have some unique genetic characteristics that make you more resilient to radiation than we initially thought. The doctors are fascinated. Happy to advance interspecies medical knowledge, he quipped, then grew serious. Try about what you said during the crisis, about orchestrating our marriage. She sighed, settling more comfortably beside him on the medical bed. I suppose you deserve the full story. That would be nice. It started during the Kraken War, she began. I was part of the diplomatic team observing human military tactics. We'd always considered your species, well, primitive is too harsh a word, but certainly less advanced. Then we saw how you fought. We got lucky, he said modestly. No, she corrected firmly. You were brilliant. Creative. You developed strategies no Paraxian would have conceived because we're too bound by tradition and protocol. You saved not just yourselves, but every species in the sector. Her hand found his, fingers intertwining. That's when I began studying humans more closely. Your art, your literature, your history. I found myself particularly fascinated by your romantic traditions. Hence the veil? He asked, beginning to understand. Partly, she smiled. I needed a way to ensure my future husband would choose me for the right reasons. The veil became my tool in my test. Many suitors came, all claiming they didn't care about my appearance, but their actions betrayed them. They were either consumed with curiosity about what lay beneath, or they viewed me as a political prize. And I passed this test how exactly? You treated me like a person, she said simply. Yes, you acknowledged the political importance of our marriage, but you also made me laugh. You saw me as an individual, not just a veiled mystery or a diplomatic token. When you agreed to marry me without seeing my face, it wasn't because you didn't care about my appearance. It was because you cared more about who I was beneath it. Trevor absorbed this, feeling a mix of emotions. You took quite a risk. What if we hadn't been compatible? Oh, I'd done my research, she said with a mischievous glint in her eye. I knew we would be physically compatible. As for emotional compatibility, she leaned closer, her breath warm against his ear. Let's just say I had faith in my judgment. Your judgment nearly got me killed, he pointed out. No, she corrected. Your own heroic nature nearly got you killed, which, by the way, was exactly what I was trying to avoid by wearing the veil. I needed someone who would see past the surface to the person beneath, but I didn't expect quite such dramatic proof. He chuckled, then winced slightly. So what now? Now, she said, checking his medical readings. You rest and recover. The doctors say you'll be fine, but you need time to heal. And after that, her smile turned sultry. After that, we continue where we left off on our wedding night. I believe we were just getting to the interesting part when we were so rudely interrupted. I seem to recall something about that, he murmured, pulling her closer despite his weakness. Though my memory's a bit fuzzy, I might need a reminder. Patience, my love, she laughed softly. You're still healing. Besides, she added with a wicked gleam in her eye, I want you at full strength for what I have in mind. Tease. Always. She kissed him gently. It's part of my charm. They were interrupted by a knock at the door. Admiral Thompson entered, followed by Baron Kylax, who had recovered from his own injuries. Commander, Thompson nodded. Good to see you awake. We have some matters to discuss. The political situation has evolved, Baron Kylax added. Your actions have had far-reaching consequences. Can it wait? Trya asked, protective instincts flaring. I'm afraid not, her father replied. The other houses are demanding answers, and the human governments are calling for immediate action against the conspirators. Trevor attempted to sit up straighter, but Trya's firm hand on his chest kept him in place. What kind of action? That's what we need to discuss, Thompson said. Your marriage was meant to be a symbol of our alliance. Now it's become something more, a catalyst for change throughout both our societies. The old guards are terrified, Baron Kylax added with a hint of satisfaction. A human and a Paraxian noble, not just married but proving to be a formidable team. It challenges everything they thought they knew about both our species. Good, Tria said firmly. It's about time for some changes. Trevor squeezed her hand. I assume you had this in mind all along. Not all of it, she admitted. but I hoped our union would help break down some barriers. I just didn't expect it to happen quite so dramatically. Story of our relationship, he smiled. Nothing quite goes as planned, but somehow it works out better than we could have imagined. Speaking of plans, Thompson interjected, we need to discuss your next assignment, both of you. Trevor and Tria exchanged glances, a whole conversation passing between them without words. Whatever it is, Trevor said finally, we'll face it together. Always, Tria agreed, her radiant blue eyes shining with promise. 2 weeks after the reactor incident, Trevor and Tria found themselves aboard the diplomatic vessel Aurora, bound for the Paraxian homeworld. His recovery had been remarkably swift, though Tria still watched him with protective vigilance that was both touching and occasionally amusing. You're hovering again, he teased as they prepared for bed in their private quarters. I'm observing, she corrected, running her fingers along his spine. The doctors said to monitor you for any lingering effects. Is that what you're doing? He turned to face her, catching her hand and bringing it to his lips. Purely medical observation? Her radiant blue eyes sparkled with mischief. Well, perhaps not purely medical. You've been cleared for strenuous activity after all? Their reunion after his recovery had been passionate, tender, and thoroughly satisfying. Now, weeks later, their physical connection had only grown stronger. Each encounter a perfect blend of playful discovery and deep intimacy. Speaking of medical matters, Tria said, suddenly serious, I need to tell you something. Trevor felt his heart skip. What is it? She took his hand, placing it on her abdomen. I'm pregnant. For a moment, he could only stare, joy and wonder warring with surprise. But I thought the genetic differences are less significant than we thought, she finished. Remember those unique characteristics the doctors discovered while treating you? Apparently, humans and Paraxians are more compatible than anyone realized. We're going to have a baby, Trevor. He pulled her close, overwhelmed with emotion. When did you find out? Yesterday. I wanted to be sure before telling you. She looked up at him, a hint of vulnerability in her expression. Are you happy? His answer was a deep, passionate kiss that left them both breathless. Happy doesn't begin to cover it. Their celebration was interrupted by the ship's communication system. Commander Sterling, Lady Tria, your presence is requested in the conference room. They arrived to find Admiral Thompson and several high-ranking officials from both species waiting. The tension in the room was palpable. We've received intelligence, Thompson began without preamble. The traditionalist factions are mobilizing. They're using your marriage, and particularly the news of your pregnancy, as a rallying cry. Trevor felt Tria stiffen beside him. How did they learn about the pregnancy so quickly? We have a leak, one of the Pyraxian officials admitted. The medical records were accessed. They're calling it an abomination, another official added, a dilution of pure Paraxian blood. Idiots, Tria snapped. Our genetic compatibility proves we were meant to work together, not remain separate. Nevertheless, Thompson continued, we need to address this. The two of you are being assigned as joint ambassadors to the Pyraxian Central Worlds. Your mission is to demonstrate the benefits of human-Paraxian cooperation while navigating the political landscape. In other words, Trevor summarized, we're going to be parade ponies. Strategic symbols, Thompson corrected. Your marriage has become a focal point for both progressive and conservative factions. How you handle this could determine the future of our alliance. No pressure, Trevor muttered. Tria squeezed his hand. We've faced worse. At least no one's trying to blow us up this time. Yet, several voices chorused. The meeting continued late into the night, discussing security measures, diplomatic protocols, and contingency plans. Through it all, Trevor found himself increasingly aware of Tria's presence beside him. Her strength, her intelligence, her unwavering support. Later, back in their quarters, they stood by the viewport, watching the stars streak by. Tria's head rested on his shoulder, their hands intertwined over her abdomen. Having second thoughts? She asked softly. About you? Never. He kissed her temple. About becoming the most controversial couple in two civilizations while expecting the first human Paraxian child in history? Maybe a few. She turned to face him, her violet skin glowing in the starlight. We're making history, my love, breaking down barriers that have stood for millennia. It won't be easy, but nothing worthwhile ever is. You know, he mused, When I agreed to marry you without seeing your face, I never imagined it would lead to all this." "Regrets?" she asked, echoing their first moment together. He answered by pulling her into a passionate kiss, pouring all his love and commitment into the gesture. When they finally parted, both were breathing heavily. "None whatsoever," he said firmly, "though I do have one question." "Oh, our child, will they need to wear a veil too?" Tria's laughter filled their quarters, bright and joyous. "Only if they want to find their own clever, brave, slightly reckless spouse someday. Speaking of reckless," he murmured, drawing her closer, "we have several hours before we reach Paraxian space. Any suggestions for how to pass the time?" Her answer was nonverbal but thoroughly enthusiastic. As they came together, Trevor reflected on how far they'd come from that first meeting. The mysterious veiled lady had become his partner in every sense, his lover, his friend, his fellow warrior, and now the mother of his child. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, and he wouldn't have it any other way. The medical facility within the Paraxian Royal Complex was a marvel of advanced technology, its crystalline walls housing equipment far beyond Earth's current capabilities. Trevor stood beside Tria, who reclined on the examination bed, as Dr. Renara, the realm's foremost expert in xenobiology, studied the holographic display of their developing child. "Fascinating," the doctor murmured, her aged violet fingers dancing through the projection. "Simply fascinating." "Good fascinating or bad fascinating?" Trevor asked, squeezing Tria's hand. "Extraordinary fascinating," Renara replied, her eyes gleaming with scientific excitement. "Your child appears to be developing characteristics of both species, but in a perfectly harmonious way. The genetic integration is elegant." Tria sat up straighter, her free hand resting protectively over her slightly swollen abdomen. "What exactly does that mean?" "It means," Renari explained, expanding the hologram, "that instead of struggling to reconcile conflicting genetic traits, your child's DNA has found optimal combinations. They'll have your enhanced strength and regenerative capabilities, Lady Tria, combined with Commander Sterling's radiation resistance and adaptive immune system." "And physically?" Trevor asked, studying the shifting images. "A perfect blend," Renara smiled. "Violet skin, but with a subtle iridescence we've never seen before. Human facial features with Paraxian eyes. They'll be able to thrive in both Earth and Paraxian environments without any difficulty." Trevor felt Tria relax beside him. They'd both been worried about potential complications, despite their outward confidence. "There's more, Yorman," Renara continued, her expression growing serious. "The child's brain structure shows signs of both species' neural patterns. This could result in unique cognitive abilities. The creative adaptability of humans, combined with Paraxian analytical precision. A bridge between our peoples," Tria whispered, looking up at Trevor with shining eyes. "Not just politically, but biologically." "The perfect symbol of unity," he agreed, then frowned. "Which means we'll need to be even more careful about security." As if on cue, the facility's alert system activated. "Unauthorized gathering detected in the outer courtyard," a calm voice announced. "Security protocols engaged." Trevor moved to the window, keeping Tria behind him. Below, a crowd had gathered, some holding signs protesting their union, others supporting it. The scene was peaceful for now, but tension crackled in the air. "The news about the child's unique characteristics has leaked," Renara said grimly. "I've maintained complete confidentiality, but there are always those willing to sell information," Tria finished. She stood, straightening her diplomatic robes with regal grace. "Well, we knew this wouldn't be easy." Trevor watched as she moved to stand beside him at the window, her bearing proud and unafraid. The sunlight caught her violet skin and purple hair, making her glow like some ancient warrior goddess. The sight still took his breath away, just as it had on their wedding night. "You know what this means," he said softly. She nodded. "We need to take control of the narrative. No more hiding behind diplomatic niceties." "The people need to see us, really see us," he agreed. "Not just as political figures, but as a family." "A rather unconventional family," she smiled, leaning into him. "Says the woman who married a man without showing him her face," he teased, wrapping an arm around her waist. "Best decision I ever made," she replied, turning to face him. "Though I have to admit, your reaction when I finally removed that veil was quite satisfying. I seem to recall you being rather satisfied later that night as well, he murmured, drawing her closer. Focus, you two, Renar interrupted, though her tone was amused. We need to discuss the medical implications of these findings. They spent the next hour reviewing detailed scans and discussing care protocols. Throughout it all, Trevor found his attention constantly drawn to Trya. The way she asked precise, intelligent questions, her protective instincts already in full force, the subtle changes in her body that only he would notice. Later, in their private chambers within the royal complex, they lay tangled together in the massive bed, discussing their next steps. We should make a public appearance, Trya suggested, tracing patterns on his chest. Let them see us together, happy and unafraid. Agreed, Trevor said, running his fingers through her silken hair. But we do it our way. No scripted speeches, no political posturing. Just us, she smiled, the mysterious veiled lady who chose a human husband. And the crazy human who married her sight unseen, he finished, pulling her into a kiss. When they parted, her eyes were dancing with mischief. You know, for someone who took such a risk, you certainly seem pleased with what you found under that veil. I still am, he growled playfully, rolling them over so he could look down at her. Though I think I need another thorough inspection, just to be sure. Her laughter turned to sighs of pleasure as he proceeded to do exactly that. Hours later, as they lay contentedly in each other's arms, Trya spoke softly into the darkness. Our child will face challenges we can't even imagine. True, Trevor agreed, his hand splayed protectively over her abdomen. But they'll also have opportunities no one has ever had before, and they'll have us. The most controversial parents in two civilizations? The most devoted parents in any civilization, he corrected, who just happen to be really good at dealing with crises. Speaking of crises, she murmured, we should probably get some sleep. Tomorrow's public appearance will be interesting. Everything about us is interesting, he chuckled. But you know what? What? I wouldn't have it any other way. The discovery of Trevor and Trya's child's unique genetic makeup led to a breakthrough in understanding human Paraxian biology. Dr. Renara's research team found that the radiation resistance that had saved Trevor during the reactor incident wasn't just a human trait, it was specifically compatible with Paraxian genetics in a way that suggested ancient connections between their species. It's as if our peoples were meant to find each other, Trya mused one evening, as they reviewed the latest findings in their private chambers. Her pregnancy had advanced, giving her an ethereal glow that made Trevor fall in love with her all over again. Maybe we were, he replied, pulling her closer on their lounging couch, though I doubt anyone expected it to happen quite like this. She laughed, the sound still as musical as it had been on their wedding night. You mean through a mysterious veiled lady and a recklessly brave human? I prefer strategically adventurous, he corrected, kissing her temple. The research had far-reaching implications. Other human Pyraxian couples began coming forward, encouraged by Trevor and Trya's example. Each new case provided more evidence of their species' compatibility, though none quite matched the perfect synthesis found in their unborn child. You realize, Trevor said, his hand resting on her swollen abdomen, our son is going to be quite something. Son? Trey raised an eyebrow. The doctors haven't confirmed the gender yet. Call it paternal intuition, he grinned. She shifted to face him, her eyes sparkling with that mixture of mischief and love that had first captured his heart. Well, whatever our child's gender, they'll certainly have an interesting story to tell about how their parents met. My father married my mother without seeing her face. Trevor mimicked a child's voice, making her laugh again. And had no regret, she finished, pulling him into a passionate kiss. Their intimate moment was interrupted by a gentle kick from within her womb. They both paused, sharing a look of wonder. Strong, Trevor commented proudly. Like his father, Trya agreed, then smiled at his triumphant expression. Fine, you win. It's a boy. The months that followed were filled with preparations, both personal and political. Their story had become a symbol of hope and unity, inspiring changes throughout both societies. The traditionalist opposition gradually softened as more evidence of human Paraxian compatibility emerged. Even Malrax, from his prison cell, was forced to acknowledge the truth when his own daughter fell in love with a human scientist working on the compatibility research. 5 years later, the grand hall of the Paraxian royal complex echoed with the sound of running feet and childish laughter. Young Prince Kieran Sterling heir to both human and Paraxian legacies, darted between the crystalline columns, his iridescent violet skin shimmering in the starlight that streamed through the vast windows. "Got you!" Trevor caught his son, swinging him up into his arms. The boy's features were indeed a perfect blend of both parents. Tria's violet coloring and striking blue eyes, combined with Trevor's strong jaw and quick smile. "No fair, father," Kieran protested through giggles. "You use tactical advantages again." "Always use every advantage, my love," Tria said, joining them. She wore her diplomatic robes, having just returned from a council meeting, but her eyes were soft as she gazed at her family. "Even a veil?" Kieran asked innocently, making both his parents laugh. "Especially a veil," Tria confirmed, exchanging a meaningful look with Trevor. "Sometimes the greatest treasures are worth waiting to see." "Is that why you're wearing one today, Mother?" the boy asked, pointing to the sheer fabric draped over her shoulder. Trevor looked at his wife questioningly. She hadn't worn a veil since their wedding day. "No, darling," she smiled mysteriously. "This one is for a different surprise." She met Trevor's eyes. "Would you like to tell your father what we discovered today?" Trevor's heart skipped a beat as understanding dawned. She nodded, her radiant smile confirming his hopes. "It seems Chiron will have a sibling to share his adventures with." Trevor pulled her into their embrace, their son squeezed happily between them. As he held his family close, he reflected on the journey that had brought them here, from a diplomatic arrangement to a love that had changed two civilizations. "No regrets?" Tria whispered, echoing their old question. "Never," he replied firmly, kissing her, "though I do have one request." "Oh? This time, let's skip the reactor core emergencies during the pregnancy." Their laughter echoed through the hall, a joyous sound that symbolized everything they had achieved together. Their love story had begun with a veil and a leap of faith, but it had grown into something far greater. A bridge between worlds, a testament to the power of looking beyond surfaces, and proof that the greatest adventures often begin with a single act of trust. As the stars twinkled outside, casting their light over the family, Trevor knew that marrying his mysterious veiled lady had been more than just a diplomatic success. It had been the beginning of a legacy that would reshape the galaxy for generations to come. And he wouldn't have it any other way.